Today, Critical Role made a huge announcement that they are working on a new game system. So does this mean that they're leaving Dungeons & Dragons for good? During the Darrington Press State of the Press video, Matt and Mika made several new announcements, including a reprint of the Vox Machina art books, the fact that Darrington Press will be at Gen Con showcasing some of the upcoming games, the release of Queen by Midnight, a powerful princess deck building game created by Critical Role producer Kyle Shire, and the ongoing development of Syndicult, a modern low magic game with mob families battling it out. But the most exciting announcement, in my opinion, came at the end of the video where they announced Daggerheart.
It's a fun and fresh update to the fantasy genre of RPGs, and it's been designed for long-term campaign play and character progression. We've been working on it for a while, and we're super excited for you to check it out.
That's it. Those are the only details we have to go on. Well, that and the fact that Spencer Stark, the designer of Alice is Missing, tweeted this, and I think it's a safe assumption to say that he's working on the game. Critics have been speculating on whether or not Critical Role would develop their own game system to replace Dungeons & Dragons in their flagship show for some time now, and I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. Using their own game system would make them wholly independent from companies like Wizards of the Coast. Wizard did a great job back in January demonstrating how it can be dangerous to make your whole business dependent on another company. We've seen Critical Role moving away from Wizards' copyrighted terms more and more over the years, including renaming the gods, reskinning D&D monsters, and creating their own D&D IP in Tal'Dorei Reborn, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, and Call of the Netherdeep. Those last two were published by Wizards of the Coast, but Critical Role retains the IP for their own setting. If I was the CEO of a company like Critical Role, I know I would definitely prefer to have full independence rather than relying on the IP of others. It also makes marketing sense to switch to their own game. Critical Role is probably a big enough brand now, independent from D&D, to no longer rely on Dungeons & Dragons at the game to bring in new fans. They have a hugely successful animated series on Amazon with a second one in the works, and that can bring in a lot of new fans. Plus they have a huge fan base of a couple of million fans who will also tell their friends and bring new people in that way. These new fans are already fairly conditioned to expect regular merch drops, so Critical Role will be able to sell this new game along with supplements and adventures and new setting books, and the stream will act as one huge promotion for it. For cleverly clued in critters, there have been signs pointing towards a divergence from Dungeons & Dragons for some time now. Most notably, while we still get the classic
Dragon.
before every main game, elsewhere they have started saying that Critical Role is a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors who play tabletop role-playing games.
Play role-playing games on our Twitch channel most Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific.
Plus, for quite a while, they have been using the term Game Master instead of Dungeon Master, and when Matt and Marisha were asked by Linda Kodega explicitly about making their own game system, they did respond very vaguely of like, oh, we'd love to, but they spoke about what they would want to focus on in their own game.
I mean, if ever the opportunity were to arise with the right people and the right design, and it made sense for the type of show we were doing, then I would love that.
It's something that excites us.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too, is we've talked a lot about like, everyone plays role-playing games differently. Some people are more excited about the crunchiness, the dungeon delving, the slaying and looting. And the way we kind of have always played D&D or even other role-playing games is we really enjoy the character creation, the storytelling aspects, the using it as a device and a tool to drive the story forward.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of talks there as well in terms of like, what would we want to get out of our own system or a role-playing game that really does feel very Critical Role.
That sounds pretty much like exactly what we heard for Daggerheart. So with all that in mind, is Daggerheart going to be the replacement for D&D? Well, firstly, they explicitly say that this game will be for long-term campaigns. What is Critical Role famous for if not their multi-year campaigns? And secondly, they say it is going to have a focus on character development, which has always been the crux of Critical Role, the thing that draws a lot of critters in. When you ask critters for their favorite moments from the show, I'd say 9 times out of 10 that it is moments between characters that come up over and over again. So it makes sense that they would seek to highlight that with this new game system. And lastly, the name. Daggerheart. Feels very appropriate to Critical Role. How many times have the cast, I'm looking at you Liam O'Brien, stuck a dagger in our hearts with their stories? The question is, if they are going to use this game instead of Dungeons & Dragons, how far off are we from seeing that happen? It would make a lot of sense for them to launch Campaign 4 with the new system, and I imagine they will want to have the mechanics and the rules locked up pretty tight before then so that they can put their best foot forward and make sure that it plays well and the audience will respond positively to it. Critters have estimated that we are about halfway through Campaign 3, so it could be a year or so more more, where they will have time for playtesting and probably testing the waters with some streamed one-shots. That way, if it goes badly or it's not well received, they can go back to the drawing board and stick with Dungeons & Dragons while they sort it out. I think whatever route they go, we're going to see some division amongst the critters, with people happy to see a change and people not so happy to see a change. I'd love to hear what you think about this announcement and whether you would be excited to see them play Daggerheart instead of D&D. And hey, if you like this video, you'll probably enjoy my Campaign 3 breakdowns, where I help you keep up to date and across all the lore, connections, and clues. Bye!